Okay, I'm going to start the recording. Everybody, I'm going to admit all the participants.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we can get started. All right, looks like everybody is in.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Jawad Rashid, and I am the president of the Mohawk Valley Frontiers. We are a civic organization based out of the Mohawk Valley in central New York, dedicated to providing services to the Mohawk Valley region. We have embarked on a number of town hall meetings, a series dedicated to exploring the impact of various institutions necessary to the life and well-being of our communities and the impact they have on students of color. Today, we are blessed to have with us 5 different school districts who deal with a significant number of students of color in their school district. We will be exploring educating students of color, the challenges, the best practices, and some of the solutions. The Mohawk Valley Frontiers was incorporated in 1973 in the Mohawk Valley in an attempt to provide services to people who had been economically challenged, disadvantaged, and had many different difficulties based upon many of the results and vestiges of systemic racism. We have been able to put together a number of programs that are viable and effective in assisting and improving the quality of life for the people in the Mohawk Valley. We bring to you this town hall meeting on the educating of students of color. We hope that you will gain meaningful insight as we tap into the expertise of our panel. Let me remind everyone, please mute your microphones. Please turn off your video. Please mute your microphones. Please turn off your videos as you join this town hall meeting. We will begin with a brief video dealing with teachers and students, and then we will have our moderator, Dr. Chanel Benson-Reed, present to you some information, and then she will moderate the panel. Dr. Benson-Reed was educated in the state of California, where she earned her doctorate degree in education, with her dissertation specializing in the education of children of color. So without further ado, please participate through our chat line. Please enjoy our informative session and enjoy this video. Again, please mute your mics and turn off your video. Thank you.
We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson, the kids should learn it. I should teach it, they should learn it, case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know it. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Chanel R. Benson Reed, and I am your moderator for today's town hall meeting. Educating students from marginalized circumstances is a complex process involving big picture considerations and specific instructional strategies. At the very least, these students need to know adults in their lives are aware of the cultural and social situations they encounter on a consistent basis and truly care about their personal and academic success. From this foundation, trusting relationships develop and serve as an essential context for learning. While the bridge from awareness and caring to learning and achievement is necessary for a successful school career, it is vitally important for students who from disenfranchised backgrounds who tend to experience more challenges in their personal and academic lives. Students from these backgrounds and communities benefit from the type of support that nurtures emotional growth while simultaneously providing optimal conditions for effective learning. So what I wanted to start with is looking at statistical information from the state of New York for the 2018 and 2019 state testing for 3rd through 8th grade. What you have here in front of you is the proficiency rate for Black or African American students. If you look at the numbers, you will see that for African American students in ELA, 34% are proficient, but that means that 66% are not. And that is in 2018, and then in 2019, it's 35%. Now, as far as math goes, next slide, please. With math, the numbers are a little bit lower. So for 2018, the proficiency rate was 29% for African American students, which means that 71% are not proficient. And for 2019, there was slight growth, but it's still at 32% proficiency rate. And for high school graduation, we'll also take a look at the statistical information. So for total number of students, we will look at the Black or African American and Hispanic, because this is the number that I want you to see. Of the total students, if you look at the number of students who have advanced Regents diploma, you'll see that 12% of 12% of African American, and 17% of Latino students when compared to white students who are at 47%. When you look at the regular Regents diploma, the numbers go up. It is for African American students, 53%, for Hispanic students, 50%. But if you look at their white counterparts, you will see that the percentage rating is actually lower. Oh, hold on, maybe, no. Yes, it's actually lower. But when you add up the totals for the Regents diploma and the advanced Regents, you will see that the bulk of students who are from white backgrounds have the ability to obtain the advanced Regents diploma, whereas students who are from African American or Hispanic backgrounds do not have that opportunity. Go ahead, next slide, please. So what I want to do now is we want to bring on a panel of superintendents and educators from the upstate area. I will introduce them. We have Superintendent Peter Blake. He is the superintendent of Rome City School District. He has a bachelor's of music and education from Syracuse University, a master in CSA of educational leadership from Lemoyne College, and a doctorate of educational leadership from Syracuse University. He has over 20 years of education experience. We also have Mr. Stephen Faulci. He is the Administrative Director of Curriculum and Instruction at Utica City School District. He earned his undergraduate degree from State University, New York at Geneseo. He earned a master's degree in literacy and a certificate of advanced study in educational administration from SUNY Cortland. He is, I apologize. He is entering his 30th year as an educator for Utica City School District. He has been a teacher, assistant principal, and served as a principal at Thomas R. Proctor High School for over 10 years before being appointed to his current position. The next is Jaime Alessia, Superintendent of Syracuse City School District. He began his career as a teaching assistant and has led to his current position. He has been in education for 33 years. Mr. Alessia got his start in Syracuse City as a teaching assistant at Seymour Elementary in 1983, soon becoming a teacher and going on to act as an administrative intern at Fowler High School. He has also acted as vice principal of Dr. King and principal at Seymour and Fowler High School. His extensive experience at SESD also allowed him to serve as an area superintendent, where he was responsible for the overall support and supervision of 19 schools in the district. He notably established the Principals Advisory Committee, a parent advisory group, a pre-K through 12 articulation, monthly staff development for administrators, and more. Going on to serve as Deputy Superintendent for Supervision and Instruction, Mr. Alessia served 38 schools in the district, including the Parent Participation Program, and was responsible for staffing schools and evaluating principals, among other responsibilities. Dr. Toga Hayali. Dr. Hayali is the superintendent of 3 charter schools in Central New York region called the SANY, Science Academies of New York Charter Schools, that are in Syracuse and Utica. In his capacity, Dr. Hayali is responsible for the management and administration of 3 K through 12 charter schools serving more than 2,000 urban children in Central New York. In his role, he is also accountable for defining the vision, setting goals, strategic planning, and leadership management of all educational, administrative, and operational functions of the school. Our next guest on the panel is Dr. Yolanda, PA of Enterprise Charter School. Dr. PA is the principal at Enterprise Charter School. Dr. PA will be on with us for a brief moment of time. When she has to leave the meeting, Dr. Greg Kelly will join us. He is the Dean of Students for Enterprise Charter School. Enterprise Charter School is a charter school located in Buffalo, New York. Thank you. Oh, so I was waiting for something else. I apologize to everybody on the panel. What we want to do is we want to actually get right into some questions. First off, I know many of the people listening, I know many of the people who are in the chat, whether it be on Facebook Live or on the Zoom station. I know you have questions about COVID. And so what we want to do is we want to address COVID right now. And we will address it in the capacity of, all right, gentlemen and lady, based on what we saw, during the last semester, what were your lessons from the COVID experience in education? Mr. Blake, I would like to start with you.
Thank you, Dr. Benson-Reed, and thank you for allowing me to participate. Welcome to everybody here. It's a great opportunity for us, and I'm happy to represent the Rome community and Rome City School District. I think the first lesson that we learned in Rome is that despite what we had thought, our community was a lot more flexible to different options than maybe we had anticipated. There were a lot of road bumps and barriers and bruises along the way, but with every step and every turn that we walked into a wall, our community and our staff and our students kind of met the challenge and found a way to keep going. Resistance was minimal, in my opinion. However, at the same time, it became very clearly obvious, at least in our community, that we have connectivity issues. We still today have families contacting us that were not aware that they had access to Chromebooks. We've been consistently distributing Chromebooks since March, but that message still is not reaching some folks. So we're learning a few things that we got to make sure we fix in the coming weeks to months as we embark on 2020, 2021. One being accurate locations of residents and phone numbers, addresses, email addresses for parents and families and students. I do believe that most folks have access to some form of cellular device, which would give them a phone number and hopefully email access, internet access sporadically. So we got to get a better job of getting a handle on where our kids are living and how we can connect with them. And the second one is making sure we have a true count on connectivity for those that may need to do virtual learning. We're pretty confident that we've got the devices relative to being able to loan out Chromebooks or community agencies that can help students and families with access to the internet if the family can get there. But the big issue right now is making sure that they can get onto the internet if they are going to be doing remote learning.
Thank you. Dr. Hayali, do you care to respond to that question?
Sure. As Superintendent Blake indicated, being flexibility is the greatest thing. I think we all talk about how we are in this agrarian education system. We are still using this agrarian system. And I think this COVID taught us something, and in terms of being flexible and change. And this change infected all of us, actually, not just the students, the staff, and the parents. So March 13 in Utica, we had to close. March 15, actually 16, 17, we were able to pass out all the Chromebooks, which was really great. Being a smaller environment really helped us, and having the infrastructure. But the infrastructure is not only the answer, it's also the teachers, how well they can really relate to the change and utilizing the online tool, the remote learning. And we have seen great success in terms of the students and the parents, how the teachers related to them, and also educating the parents. So we were very fortunate, and I truly appreciate Syracuse and Utica in terms of collaborating together, providing the meals, and working together, helping all the children, and making sure the achievement gap is not getting wider but closer, hopefully. So that was a great moment, and we will continue to learn and looking forward for the new systems that will implement our education world. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alessia, would you care to chime in, sir? Can you please unmute Mr. Alessia?
Yes.
Thank you.
Again,
Thank you very much, sir.
Again, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning and to share some of the experiences that we have had in the Syracuse City School District. The first one is with the COVID-19. I agree with Peter and Dr. Hagali. We have had to make adjustment. Most people think city, urban education, so there's a lot of internet services, a lot of devices, and one of the things that we found out was that only about 30% of our kids had devices at home. So we needed to improvise and be creative to provide the support to our students. One of the things that we did in Syracuse, knowing that the first technology that was out there was TV, we partnered with WCNY and we began to offer TV lessons to all the kids in the Syracuse City School District from kindergarten all the way to high school. Those lessons were shown to many people, many counties in New York State. So, but the most important lesson that we learned during the COVID-19 was the parent trust. We needed to communicate with the parents on a regular basis. We needed to make sure that the parents knew that we were doing everything that we could to support the kids and that there was ongoing communication with them almost every other day, you know, communicating with them about the programs that we had, communicating about the issues that we were having, and letting them know that we were here to support the kids and to support the families. There was a lot of things happening in our city. So we also had to provide trauma training for our staff, trauma training for our families, and provide support for them. During those 4 months, we provided more than 600,000 meals to the kids in the city of Syracuse, and we continue to provide those meals for our kids and the family. So it was a great partnership. We partnered with WCNY Community Foundation, churches and other agencies in the community, so we can all together provide the support that our kids and our families needed during those difficult times.
Thank you, Mr. Alessia. Mr. Faulci?
Hi, thank you. First, I just want to thank the Junior Frontiers again. They're a great organization who have done a lot of work for our kids in the Utica City School District and the community, and to thank them for this opportunity. I think some of the big lessons that we learned from COVID, as the other panelists mentioned, was the need for flexibility. The traditional delivery of education was greatly altered, as everybody knows, in terms of instructional delivery, meeting the academic needs of our students, meeting the socio-emotional needs of our students, delivering special education services. But it did bring about a sense of creativity among our staff and collaboration between our students, our parents, our teachers. I think one of the big things that we learned is it really helped. It helped us to be in tune even more so empathy and compassion for our families. In light of the circumstances, we had families who were—
Mr. Faulci, your connection is a little difficult, and so we're having a tough time hearing you. You're going in and out. Go ahead and start again. I apologize, sir. We got the beginning.
That's okay. So I think one of the main things we learned was we had an increase in awareness of some of the things that our families were going through during this time, especially medical issues associated with COVID. And not only that, but there's an economic impact, of course, to our families who may have lost their jobs. So it really helped enhance that awareness and compassion. And also brought to light some financial considerations. Obviously, if you're passing out 2,000 Chromebooks, there's a cost to that. And it also is highlighting the financial issues that school districts such as ours face. And we're going to see that coming up with reopening. If you're spending money on PPE, Wi-Fi devices, because again, one of the other things that it really showed us was the disparity our students have, especially with internet access, computer devices. So all those things need to be.
Thank you. So when we decided to do the town hall, we knew that we didn't want to spend the bulk of the time on COVID. And so that's the time. We know that there is information coming down from the governor and we know that we have to abide by whatever stipulations he puts in place. And at that time, any school district that you are affiliated with will know what the next steps are, and you will have to reach out to them after the governor decides what direction we need to go as a state. Now, what I want to do is go on to our next panel question. Also, I want to remind the people in the chat, the people on Facebook, that you can send questions into the chat, and I will get the panel to hopefully respond to your question. And if you send them on Facebook Live, someone will get them to me, and I will hopefully be able to get the panel to also to respond to those questions. Now, Dr. PA, we're going to start with you on this question. And what I want to pose is, do you think there is a need to hire more African-American teachers and other teachers of color? It's a two-part question. So do you think there is a need? And two, how do you think that will impact students of color? Are you there, Dr. PA?
Hi, Dr. Benson. Could you repeat that question for me one more time? I stepped away for a minute.
It's okay, no problem. So my question is, do you think there is a need to hire more African-American teachers or teachers of color? But I am specifically talking about African-American because oftentimes when we say teachers of color, we can bring in other people of color and not African-American. And how do you think that will impact students of color?
Okay, so I do think there is a need for more teachers of color. I say this because our students of color need someone to identify with. But also on the other side of that is our students really, as long as they know that you care and you're genuine and that you have their best interest in mind, they're usually okay with that. And I think that sometimes it's some of the biases that we have as adults. But at the same time, I feel it's important for us to be represented. They need to see that. They need to understand that, you know, there are other people of color that are in different positions in the school system. And then we need more of that so that when we're making those decisions that really impact our students of color, we have those people who can identify and give some meaningful information and go into those decision-making processes. So I think it's multidimensional. Yes, okay. I do believe, yeah, we do need more, but at the same time, I think that we need to look over our processes and our systems and decide, you know, what works and what doesn't.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Hyali?
Definitely, and I came to United States in 2000, yes, so I was born and raised in Switzerland. My color doesn't look like Swiss. I don't have blue eyes and blonde hair, because my heritage comes back from Turkey. Even though I was Swiss, you know, I was born there and raised there, and I couldn't fit in, I couldn't relate, and so on and so on. So I could see the point, especially when I worked in Cleveland, Ohio, east side of Cleveland, and then I moved to Patterson, New Jersey, lean on me, yes? Right. And really right into the hood, and in 2008, I came to Syracuse. One thing, obviously, I found out, and that was true after 2000. Before 2000, I worked in Russia, in St. Petersburg. I mean, what a mixed up education and culture richness, yes, and all over. But what I have observed was, very interestingly enough, that like Dr. Pierre was mentioning, yes, the care is there, but it's also very important to identify. And I have an accent, yes, and this accent makes me, you know, not one of them, but because of the love and the care, they embraced me. What helped me to realize firsthand, I never forget, why the time in Cleveland, I was also volunteering as a translator at the appeal court. And I never forget this wonderful woman, Judge Blackman. She was the first African-American woman in Ohio in the appeal court. And I always try to invite, if I'm not, if they can't identify themselves with me, but there are so many other leaders in the community they can see who are successfully reach the, you know, the peak in their career, and let's bring those in, yes. And I could never forget how Judge Blackman, when she started and just came in and engaged with the students, and how she motivated and she reached them. So therefore, when we talk to our teachers, and it is the numbers. I mean, what is it in the United States? More than 75% of our teachers are white female, and nothing against them. But in the meantime, what Judge Blackman showed us that before you teach, you must reach our children. And that's the first thing I learned also. I knew the content, I had a love, but I needed to reach also. So, and that's a big hurdle. So the legacy, for my legacy when I die, I'm looking, and what legacy means is the seed you plant in your garden that you may not see even, yes, is those children that graduate from our schools will become the leaders and the teachers of our districts. Because they have the story, what it takes to become the leaders to serve to the community in the best capacity. So in order to improve this, we are really struggling in all aspects. So Junior Frontiers were big help. Another part was also historical Black colleges that we reached out and we encouraged them. Unfortunately, we have a couple of disadvantages up in upstate. Having lots of snow is not the greatest advantage on our side, but we do need it. And hopefully we are trying to grow our own children who really believes in teaching, because teaching right now, and I think Superintendents Blake and Jaime will support me on this side, it's a great career. It has such a great meaning, and we need more of our children who will really get into this pipeline and can say, yes, this is it. Look at this. We have, I mean, yes, some of the other companies may provide higher salary, but we have the best benefits that we can offer. Am I right? So, I mean, the New York State teacher retirement is an amazing benefit. And then also the working hours that we work. I know our teachers, you know, work, even bring their homes, but they can spend the time also with their children. So I really want to encourage the teaching profession, unfortunately, that is not filled up with the teacher of color who can really, our students can identify. And therefore, hopefully down the road, I want to talk a little bit more about this teaching career, which has the meaning, because like Mark Twain said, you have 2 days, one the day that you're born, and the second day that you understand why you're born. What's your impact in the life and the legacy you're going to leave? So therefore, yes, we do need them a lot, but I also agree, it doesn't mean that if you don't have it, you know, you're a failure, as long as you have the care and the system in place that you can fill in the pipeline with the students who can really identify themselves. It's the part. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Blake?
Thank you. I think that one question could probably consume the entire 2 hours and the rest of the day if you peel it back. I'm going to try my best to wrap all my thoughts on this one into one. The short answer is yes, and I'll take it beyond just teachers in schools. I personally think we need more African Americans and people of color in all facets of our education systems, whether it be whatever the job might be within a school system. We need to have more folks that our Black students and our students of color can relate to when they come into the building. And I say that because as any individual going into a new environment, if you just think about an adult perspective, when you go into a new job, the first thing you do is try and find somebody that you can easily relate to and feel safe talking to. So if as adults, we have that internal feeling to have to do that when we start a new job or go into a new environment, kids are obviously going to be doing that as well. They don't vocalize it as well because they're kids, and they aren't quite ready to do that, many of them yet. So I think first and foremost, if we can provide any form of environment where our kids feel that they can easily talk to somebody, and simply being, if you're a Black student or student of color, you're going to gravitate towards someone that does look more like. We've heard that time and time again. I know we have that conversation frequently in Rome with our local NAACP. We've had that conversation with the Junior Frontiers as well. And what that boils down to is the key word of relationships, going back to the initial video. While it might be challenging for a student of color maybe to build a relationship sometimes with a white teacher, if there is another individual of color, an adult in the building that might not be a teacher, might be a TA, might be a support staff, might be a custodian, it could be maybe a parent volunteer, a coach, an athletic coach. There's all kinds of other adults that could be in a school building that a kid could relate to. But those adults have relationships with the other adults. And if the kid can break down the barrier with one person, that adult can then become a colleague or an ally for a student that might be in a tough situation with another teacher. It doesn't totally solve the problem, but first and foremost, I'm a firm believer that people that gravitate into the field of education are those that have had a positive experience while they were themselves in school. You don't find many teachers or folks that work in the schools that'll tell you that they spent most of their high school days barely getting by, they barely graduated, you know, they were suspended 40 times. That's not typically the type of person that ends up in education because they had a bad experience. And we're not going to be able to change that modality to increase until us as school systems make sure that our kids feel safe every day they come to school, make sure that they feel like they belong, and that they have individuals that they can talk to regardless of what color. We shouldn't have to be having that conversation. Unfortunately, we are. Because for many years, our systems have been broken, and us as leaders have not been willing to have these conversations, the tough conversations to say there are issues and work together to fix them. So we definitely need more teachers of color, African-American teachers, but just beyond teaching, we need to have a much more diverse workforce.
Thank you. Mr. Alessia, would you like to chime in on this one as well, sir?
Yes, I agree with everything that has been said already. It makes a big difference for a kid to walk into a classroom the first day of school and see someone in front of the classroom that looks like them. When I look at my student population, 48% of my students are African American. When I look at my teacher population, my staff, only 9% are African American. So my goal and the goal of the Board of Education is to recruit, to hire more teachers of colors. When I look at the entire student population in Syracuse, 70% are a student of colors, and only 13% of the teaching staff is minority teaching. So we need to do something to hire, to recruit more diverse force. One of the things that we're doing in Syracuse, one of our CTE pathways, we have a future teacher program. So we're recruiting kids who are interested in becoming teachers. By the time they graduate from high school, they will have their teaching assistant certificate, and they'll be able to go to college, get their degree, and they will be hired by the Syracuse City School District. So definitely, we need more teachers of color and more African-American teachers in front of our kids.
Thank you. Mr. Faulci?
Yes, I hope my connection's a little bit better.
Yes, it is now.
But no, I certainly agree with the panelists. Our students definitely need to interact and see people who reflect their diverse backgrounds, people that they can look up to. And I can, as a high school principal especially, I can remember staff members of color who were able to very effectively relate with some of our most difficult students and make a difference and change their life. But I think the bigger question is, how do we get our students of color to enter the educational field? One of the things our district has done over the past several years, we've had a program in Rochester. Today's students, tomorrow's
Mr.
teachers.
Faulci, you're going in and out.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not sure what's wrong with my connection. I'm gonna have to see if I can find a tech person. But again, the question is, how do we
Recruit them, right?
yes, to go into the field? And as Dr. Alessia said, we also have a partnership with students who are interested in teaching.
Is your partnership with Rochester? Is that what you said?
Yes, today's students, tomorrow's teachers.
Okay, okay.
Throughout their high school career and then through college. And then the goal is to hire them back in the district to work with our students.
Okay. So like Judge Jawad indicated, my research was in education. And what I'd like to say about this is I looked at education prior to Brown versus Board of Education, and I looked at education post Brown versus Board of Education. And in my research, what I learned is when we created integration, when integration became the law of the land, now we know that African-American schools were underfunded and underserved. But the thing that we had were teachers who would go above and beyond to make sure these students were successful. But what we also had prior to Brown versus Board of Education were educated middle class, because you had educators, you had principals, you had people who were working in the school system who had jobs. Now, when integration became the law of the land, what you did was you basically created unemployment for all of those people because students were moved to schools where they would be integrated, but you left teachers unemployed, you left administrators unemployed. And so when I think of educating and encouraging people to go into education, I'm looking at it from a macro level. We had the pleasure of listening to a young man speak a couple of weeks ago who talked about how resources leave the city. The thing about being able to get teachers of color in the city is now you have income in the city because you have people who are earning a more than livable wage who can contribute to the tax base in the city. And if we can contribute to the tax base in the city, then we can contribute to the revenue in the city. Especially cities like Syracuse City, where we need a middle class and we need the revenue. And so I ask you to not look at it as just a benefit for the school district, but also a benefit to the greater community, because that was one of the impacts of Brown versus Board of Education that many people tend not to recognize, understand, or know about. And so even though we know that if you show that you care, if you build the relationships, if you work with students, you can help them get to where they need to be. But removing teachers of color and educators of color, administrator and otherwise, actually depleted an entire workforce, a Black workforce. That's what I want to make sure we know. Now,
Doctor, could I say one thing also?
Yes,
this
sir.
Is one thing I wanted to mention also is that, and I think I've talked with the majority of the panelists on this this town hall meeting about, and that is teacher recruitment. Many have, like Dr. Hayali alluded to, have taken the opportunity to partner with historical Black colleges. And I know, for instance, you know that the Junior Frontiers do historical Black tours every year. And we have built up a relationship with over 25 different historical Black colleges. And we have, in fact, taken some school districts with us on that tour, introduced them to the heads of the department, had meetings with them, not only talking about articulation agreements for transfers and things of that nature, like we're working with Mohawk Valley Community College, but we've also assisted them with hiring teachers, going to the teacher recruitment job fairs. And I think that while there are challenges for every district dealing with trying to get a rapport with historical Black colleges, I think it's a viable option that they have to look at. I know that I've taken materials for the Syracuse School District, for the Rome School District. Dr. Hayali sent his personnel personally on our trip with us to interview teachers, and he have gone down to their work, to their hiring techniques, and have actually hired people from that trips stemming from historical Black college tours. So I think that's a viable option that teachers have to look, that school districts have to look at. Notwithstanding some of the challenges, it's the very viable option.
So that leads us to the next question. What can you put in place to forge those relationships? For example, there are Syracuse University, we know, has a relationship with Syracuse School District. Oswego, SUNY Oswego, we know that they have a relationship with Syracuse City School District. What do we as the community members need to do to foster those relationships with school districts and colleges so that we can, I guess, start a feeder system or increase those numbers? What can we do to assist you with moving towards doing that, or be instrumental in the conversation to move that forward? I know Enterprise Charter is not a high school. It is a K through 8, but I would like your thoughts on it. Enterprise Charter, Dr. PA or Mr. Kelly. Okay, I'm not sure if they're still in the chat. Mr. Alessia?
Again, yeah, having those relationships, those partnerships with the colleges and universities are very important. And like you said, we have partnered with Syracuse University. We have partnered with SUNY Oswego. We have partnered with Cortland. We also take a group of kids every year, except this year because of the Covet, on a tour to historical Black colleges and universities in the South. We also take a staff from the HR department, and we do recruitment and hire people on site. We have established a partnership with a university in North Carolina, and we have hired 4 teachers that are coming directly to work with us here in Syracuse. So having that communication, that partnership, and making sure that, you know, that we provide the opportunity for our kids to go and explore other places, but also to give the opportunity for them to come visit Syracuse and provide them with employment opportunities. It is very important that, you know, when we go out to recruit, to make sure that we are going to have those positions available for them. I don't want to offer someone a job from North Carolina, from any other place, and now that we're facing budget constraint, to let the person know after they leave their family and everything else. So I have made a commitment, and the Board of Education have made a commitment that we will continue to support those teachers of color that are moving to Syracuse to provide services to our kids and our families. With Say Yes to Education, our kids have the opportunity to go and get a college degree in more than 150 colleges and universities, and we encourage them to go and pursue a degree in education, because we will, like I said before, have a job for them in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Blake, so you know the example from Syracuse City. What is Rome doing at this junction?
Yeah, thank you. So we have actually spent some time, and I'm not sure Jaime knows this, but we have had our personnel departments have been meeting over the past year, 2 years since we've started our work with Access Global and with Judge Rashid. We've been taking the pointers and working through collaboratively with that. So we've done some work with Syracuse City's personnel department on the programs that they've implemented and trying to look at how they might work in Rome. One thing that we're finding to be a barrier, unfortunately, is our own Board of Education policies to some degree hinder the types of individual that we're even allowed to interview. So that is a barrier, and I got to continue to work with our board to look at our hiring policies and what they will and will not allow us to interview, and that's directly related to certifications. It goes back to issues that happened 10, 15 years ago where people were being hired without certificates, and just trying to clean that up, which is a background story. But we've also reached out to other small city school districts around the state, Ithaca being one of the main ones we're trying to make inroads with. Ithaca has been very successful at doing some of these things, a little bit of a different demographic than Rome, but nonetheless, they have a similar budget size, they have similar population size, similar demands. What they have that we don't is major colleges right in their area. One of the hurdles that we have found is, while we have a pretty strong community college in Utica College, not too far away, we don't have a major college with a fairly large, substantial education program. MVCC's education program comes through SUNY Oneonta. So where we happen to be just kind of geographically in the state, recruiting from some colleges is a little bit more challenging than some other areas, simply because we might have to have asking a kid to drive a little bit longer than they might want to. But the reality is, what we can do, I think it starts with that relationship building piece. I'm going to keep going back to it. And I think that homegrown talent is always the best way to go. And if we can, I've been taking some notes of some of the things these other, my colleagues are doing that I think we can start looking at here in Rome. But if we can help our students that are here in town in Rome feel more safe and comfortable and have a better school environment, they're going to be more apt to want to look at that as a career and come back here when they are done with college and stay in Rome. So You know, those are some of the things that we have been working on consistently with through your program and through some of our collaborative work with other districts in the state.
Thank you, Peter. So,
Can I add something else?
yes, you can.
Sorry. One of the things also that we need to do is to continue to work with the New York State Education Department about the regulations for these teachers coming from outside of New York State. We talk about reciprocity, but sometimes they make it more difficult for them to get the reciprocity that is needed for certification. So we need to work together and to work with the State Education Department so we can provide the support that they need to get their license to teach in New York State.
Okay, so as a community, what do we need to do to help move that along? Because I know there's power in numbers, and I'm speaking from someone who, from a position of someone who had to get reciprocity, and they did not. California did not have reciprocity with New York, and so I had to wait for my teaching certification. So what can we do as a community to move that process along? Do we need to write letters? Do we need to send emails? As a community, what do we need to do?
Begin to write letters, begin to make phone calls to the member of the Board of Regents, to the Chancellor of the Board of Regents, and hopefully soon we will have also a new Commissioner of Education and let them know about those concerns that we have in the community. Because I mean, if someone can teach in California, I don't see why not that person should not be able to teach in New York State. I know that there are different educational systems. We have a Board of Regents, but if someone is in California with a degree, with a master's degree in education, they should be able to get a reciprocate certificate in New York State.
Right. So we, Mr. Blake touched on better school environment. And so there's a couple of things that I want to do in talking about better school environment. I want to lead with the idea of the importance, or your idea, do you feel it's important to have bias and diversity training? That's one. But when it comes to adopting curriculum, do you believe that bias and diversity training will help teachers understand the importance of adopting curriculum that is more representative? Dr. Hayali?
Yes, Dr. Reed. So definitely, I want to also touch back on the teaching, which is also related here, as all my colleagues mentioning the homegrown partnershiping with the colleges, all. But as a community, when you ask what can we do, when I look at Ireland or Finland or any of those places where teaching is a career that is desired, okay? When you look at the statistics in the SATs, if you look at all those teachers in the SAT scores, there was a research, it's not on the top 10%, yes? So we need to, as a community, we need to somehow bring that philosophy back, that what an honorable job, what a great meaningful part is. Obviously we need to support this and with the salaries and everything else, but when Ireland is talking, if there's this, you know, people are applying to Dublin College and the top 10% is only the doctors and the teachers, not the lawyers, not the engineers, not all the others. So it's really hard to get in even to the teaching career because it's, number one, very much respected. And number two is also well paid and respected as well, you know, and it's just valued so much higher. I think we lost that a little bit, maybe during the APPR time, I don't know what, but we need to really get back on this and let our children know the fact that, and by the way, now that the millennial, we change the careers, yes, we want to leave a legacy back, and we can always start with the teaching and helping the children. And I need to also salute, whether, you know, the success we can see down the road, but even for Teach for America, yes, those wonderful people who dedicate their 2-3 years in the areas where they're in need teaching, yes. So we need to have our own students, our own individuals who already grown in this area, who knows the streets, who knows the environment, who can relate to our, so that's the community. And when I talk to our church leaders or community leaders, that we need you guys, you need to preach about this more than I can do, you know, because that's how we can really fill in. About the bias training, definitely we have seen, and here's my story. In 2000, when I came here, yes, after the 3rd month, guess what? I was on the east side in Cleveland, East 55th. And I was teaching on the wall, on the board, all the chemistry jumping up and down. While I have a doctorate, I also have an ADHD. I have my own issues as well. But I'm trying to teach the kids, yes, and telling them, listen, this is the chemistry, and they are just looking at me like, who is this guy jumping up and down? Because I couldn't reach him maybe, yes, I was just teaching them. They could see my passion that I cared, but I needed to reach him, and my parents helped me how to reach him. They gave me the first bias training, the culture awareness training, and that's where I started, and I saw the importance when I did this home visits, yes, without any biases, coming to your home, to your comfort zone, and making sure what's your hopes and dreams about your child. But in the meantime, Ms. Jackson, I do need your support because Joshua is great. I do need it as well. So anyway, in the meantime, why bias is there, the poverty is big time as well. We need to understand as well, because we have some great, phenomenal teachers who may just live 5 or 10 miles away, have no idea about what kind of poverty level our students are coming from, especially when we do this the bus tour in the city and then the walk through in the city, yes? Understanding where, and then when you go and visit, you may not be invited into the house because the parent might not be too comfortable, you sit in the porch, but it gives understanding that, wow, it's not just out there teaching those elements and everything else, but understanding where, so that creates another passion and love for our children. Okay, I'm not going to give up on you. I'm not going to give up on you because you are the star, and I'm going to go above and beyond like all the teachers in Syracuse, Rome, and Utica, everywhere else. I have seen great, phenomenal who are doing this. So therefore, yes, those are great tools. My first training came through the parents, honestly, and here, we are training our own teachers as well in this, but I think the most important part is to see it, feel it. And after that, it's a transformation I have seen in our teachers as well. Even though they admit that, oh, I lived here just 10 miles away, I never was aware about this, and that's how it starts. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Mr. Blake?
Thank you. Yeah. First of all, short answer, yes. This is one of those things, and we've talked about this in Rome with our diversity task force, our equity task force committee, that really this is one of the mandated trainings that New York State needs to make. Because as a school leader, as a school district, there's only a set amount of things that I can mandate people to do. It doesn't mean I can't provide, bias training, diversity training. However, a staff member does have the ability to reject that or not attend. So I do think this is something that the state education department and New York State needs to make a mandated training for all people in education. And I'll take it a step further. Bias and diversity training is really about opening people's minds to the reality that's out there. I got to give a lot of credit to the Syracuse University doctoral program, and specifically Professor Mariset Ponchevan, who really was instrumental in changing my mindset and understanding how much all of this is needed in school. And to quote you, Dr. Benson-Reed, when you started work with our district and our committees, if you're having conversations that you're not uncomfortable about having, then you're not growing, you're not doing something wrong. And I think that what we need bias and diversity training at first is to get our staff to be uncomfortable and understand that their opinions, while they are entitled to an opinion, it doesn't make the opinion to be fact. And that we need them to be more open-minded about other things that kids and situations might be experiencing. Will it lead to a more diverse curriculum? I would hope so. I would also hope that we don't need to have bias and diversity training to get a more diverse curriculum. I think that the facts are right in front of our faces, that most school curriculums over the course of the past several decades have been heavily biased towards white viewpoints on the world of history and the way things are done. And given the fact that we have all of the stuff out there that in the internet that kids have the availability to do, I think our students can really teach us a lot about what it is that they want to learn. And we have more flexibility than ever with the ability to, how do we teach a skill and through which lens does the student want to learn that skill? And so really we got to get our staff members to be more open-minded about the world around them. And I do think that the only way to do that is through bias and diversity training. And it's not going to be easy, because I think we'll all be met with a lot of resistance. But again, if we're not working to have those difficult conversations that are going to make people uncomfortable, then we're not going to grow.
Thank you. At this time, I want to remind people that if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and you can also put them in the Facebook live feed. Mr. Faulci, I'd like to pose the same question to you about bias and diversity training and how that can impact curriculum, or what we can do about curriculum independently. Go ahead, sir.
Sure. So I just want to add to what Dr. Blake had said. I also believe we're in a historic time of change right now with everything that you're seeing around us. And I really think that people right now, at the time that we're in, we have an opportunity to make these things happen with diversity training and bias training. You can hear it in conversations with teachers. I sit on our Utica Teacher Center Policy Board, and at our last meeting, you have teachers who really want to embrace these topics and tackle these issues through trainings in the district. And as far as curriculum is concerned, I think we're seeing, when we look at the textbook series that are out there, that they are starting to move in a direction where you have more diverse authors and more diverse selections. But I think we definitely need to do more of that, and that we need to embed curriculum that is diverse and touches upon the backgrounds of our students into what we're teaching every day.
Thank you. Do we have the Enterprise Charter School representative on the line? Okay, so now I want to pose a question. Now, in my capacity in consulting, I work all over the country with districts all over the country. And I am often met with, I don't understand why I need the bias and diversity training if our school building, our specific building, is not a diverse population. Our population is homogeneous. Maybe other schools in our district are more diverse and have students of color that represent those populations, but this specific school does not. Why do I need to change my curriculum? Why do I need bias training and diversity training? Why do I need to change what I'm doing at my building? Because we are doing well, all is fine, our students are happy. What do you say to that school leader or those teachers? How do you get them to understand the importance of the diversity training? Let's go with Toga.
As a human being, we live in a global world, yes? So I live in Fayetteville in central New York, but my children are attending our charter schools. And the reason I chose to do this is because I want to make sure my children are living in this diversity. You know, one thing is to train people, but another thing is also to understand and get through this transformation to understand truly in all yourselves, yes? So, and that comes through this part. And in this global world, now we're going to see even more and more in the corporate world, in any other world, how do we build the relationship with different cultures? Yes, understanding that. So being in the homogeneous, I mean, they could easily go to Fayetteville. Yes, they have a choice, but you know, but that would not provide them that opportunity to understand that mindset and being, and I would love to be, as a father, having my own children, you know, grow in an environment where they have this open mindset, be able to communicate, have that soft skill and relate. And when I say diversity, I don't just mean race, culture, economic, anything and everything you can imagine, but have that understanding rather than being uncomfortable. Go through this, and that helps so much. So I do not agree of this kind of school, even if it's a homogeneous one. You may have one, you know, or two, and every one does matter. Every one of our children does matter. So therefore, I do strongly believe, and this have helped us so much more. And I don't know, you know, it's something to teach in the colleges. And what I have seen with our teachers is to live it is totally different. When you do those home visits, when you really build that relationship with the parents, when the parents can see your face whether you mean it or you fake it, yes? When you mean it, you got the parents on your side, yes? And then the child, Johnny is gonna be Johnny. Johnny is gonna do what Johnny does, yes? But when you have the parent on your side and that trust, it changes the whole part. But if you're not open-minded, you're not gonna go there. You're gonna say like our wonderful ladies shared in the YouTube, yes? Oh, my job is just to teach. Oh, forget it. Then you're not in this job. You're in somewhere else. But our job is to build the relationship and deliver the content with love and passion and dedication.
Thank you. Mr. Blake?
Yeah, I think this question goes right back to the last question about curriculum. What I would tell those folks is that just because you may not feel you have those issues, and maybe in reality a small community does not have the diversity that we would want to see, it's still important to teach all kids about diversity and about other cultures and other walks of life, because what ends up happening is eventually those students, whether it be from a school a school that has a graduating class of 20 or a graduating class of 80, 600, whatever it is, they're going to go out to other places of the country and the world with whatever viewpoints or understandings they have of the world. And if we're not preparing students through our curriculum and our teachings that there are other walks of life, they're not going to go out into the world with an open mind, and it just kind of perpetuates that situation of bias, and it could potentially lead to racism, depending on what the student feels or what's coming from home. But I think it's important for all schools to really look at the curriculum and get it to be as more needs to be more diverse, but get to be as diverse as possible, so that when a student leaves a small community that might not have a whole lot of diversity in appearance, if you will, in their school system, when they go to a city like a Syracuse or a Utica or a Rome, they're not walking into the city and seeing folks of a different color and immediately having one opinion of them or being shy about it. We need to help our kids be more open-minded, and the way to do that is through curriculum.
Thank you. Mr. Alessia?
I think that diversity training is important, bias training is important, but it's the work that we do in our schools, in our classroom, making sure that that training become a lifestyle, something that we do in our buildings every day, not because we have an African-American student in our class or in our building, not because we have a Latino, it's because it's the right thing that we need to do to train our students. We do not live in a bubble. We may not have, again, an African-American student in our building, but there could be someone living 2 or 3 blocks away from you. And, we are always interacting with each other. So sometimes we do training and people go to all the training, but it's also training the administrators when they go to the classroom and visit to make sure that that training is being implemented. And like I said before, that this is a lifestyle. This is something that we do every day, not something that we do because we have a kid in our classroom or in our building that is a student of color.
Okay, so this is a question from the chat room. The question is, what does the diversity and inclusion training look like specifically in your school systems? Mr. Faulci, I'll start with you.
Hi, so we have opened up diversity training to our teachers over the past couple of years. And I think the important thing about the diversity training is you're with many different people from various backgrounds, and you have open and honest dialogue about racism. And it can be uncomfortable, but the important part of the training is that the trainers help us to see what it's like to be in someone else's shoes or in their background, and so that we have empathy, and so that we can better understand our students and better understand what we need to do in order to help them break down barriers. It's eye-opening. It can be intense and it can be uncomfortable, but until you do that, you can't really see things from another perspective.
Thank you. Mr. Blake?
In Rome, first and foremost, we about a little bit more than a year ago, we kicked off our equity task force. Unfortunately, COVID has kind of put the halt on some of that work over the summer here. But one of the charges of the equity task force was specifically this: what can we do to help our district staff, our community, have a better understanding of bias and diversity, and really to develop a training program to help our folks better understand all of these topics. What we do in the interim, in the current, is we have many opportunities for staff members to voluntarily engage in social emotional, that as well. Bias diversity trainings through many outlets. We have a teacher center that works with it. Our Teachers Association has been committed to diversity and equity training. We have online options that we have through ASCD and through our BOCES organization. So we do our best to provide opportunities for folks, but the reality is with everything else that we're forced upon, and really this past few months, obviously a lot of the PD that's been happening for staff has been related to technology and how to deliver instruction remotely. And so really it's a good time for us to, now that we got that under our belt, those are probably the two big topics I think most school districts were focused on, was that remote learning, and now we can take a look at this and go deeper on it, and looking forward to our task force being able to get kicked back off. Is like I said, that is our main topic of that task force. How do we reach our staff through training and develop training modules and get that stuff to happen?
Thank you. Dr. Haile?
I also agree with all my colleagues, and I wanted to add the point, what we have found, all other, what everybody is sharing. What I have found, especially when we do the simulations, real simulations, yes, and when it creates this uncomfortness among all of our staff members. And I need to mention this wonderful lady also from in Utica area who helped us for years, Dietra Harvey, and bringing this idea, the simulation, and because it's really important, where it's not just that a subject that we teach in the PowerPoint, but it's a hands-on, minds-on, and I want to add the hearts-on as well. So it has to be a triangle in all those areas that we are really diving in and getting into this simulation and feeling that feeling, because it's just not, if it's just something that we learn, it's just going to stay there. It's going to stay there. But if it's something that we're going to learn and dive into it with our minds and hearts and hands, it's going to help us to transform, understand, and change our approaches. Because change is not easy. We all talk about this, but that comes through if all of our angles are really dived into this area. So therefore, I want to really, what I have seen throughout this time is the simulation helped us big time to realize the importance of the bias and the diversity training and also the poverty among our staff members. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alessia?
For the past 3 years, we have been working with NYU with the Cultural Responsive Education Center, and we have been providing training for our administrators and our staff. One of the things that we did with the board, myself, and the strategic plan committee, we made that priority number 2 in our strategic plan to make sure that that was something that we were going to be committed and doing in the Syracuse City School District. So we are doing training for all teachers. We're doing training for staff members. We're doing training for parents. We're having courageous conversations, not only with the staff, but also in the community. And right now, our family engagement department is having some conversations about white fragility. So we want to make sure that everyone is engaged in this conversation.
Thank you. So we talked about hiring, we talk about diversity, we talk about inclusion, but I want to circle back. We looked at statistical information when we began. I'm going to say around 15 years ago, I wrote a piece that said the current public school system was not created for Black and brown boys to be successful. And looking at the data right now, and like I said, I wrote the piece 15 years ago, and looking at the data right now, I still believe that. I still believe that our current educational system was not created for our Black and brown boys to be successful. I wrote my dissertation 10 years ago, which basically was the reason for writing the dissertation, because I did not believe that the system was created, the educational system as a whole. What can we do to change that? What can we do to make sure our students are successful? Now, I don't live in a fairy tale land. I know the oneness cannot be on educators. I know that. I am an educator. I am on the front line. I deal with K through 12. I deal with adult ed. I deal with university, graduate, all levels. But as people like yourselves who are on the front line, what can we do that we can change the thinking and shift exactly what's happening with our black, brown, and black boys? I would say just boys, but it's not even brown and black boys only now. Now we're moving into brown and black girls as well. And I would say, oh my, I was on the cutting edge when I wrote it, but that's not a cutting edge you want to be on. What can we do as educational leaders to change that narrative?
Could I say one thing on
Yes,
that
sir.
issue? I think it's really important, and I'm glad all of our school districts are saying they're involving themselves in the diversity training and bias training. But I think all diversity training and bias training are not equal. I think sometimes what we have to do is actually look at the training we're given. And I've been in some school districts that focus, they bring in people that focus on issues of racism and why you shouldn't be racist, and all that is good and well, but it does nothing for understanding how curricula affects children of color when there's no representation in the curriculum. They talk about individual people understanding their biases, which is great, but it does nothing about talking about how to move one from an educational perspective, from having bias against unknown cultural manifestations in our students to getting past those unknown and not understood manifestations, to working, having a real teacher-student relationship. So I think one of the ways we can start doing what you say is we have to have competent professional bias training. We have to have competent professional diversity training. It has to be with educators who understand the process, and not only the systemic racism that exists within curricula, that exists within structure, that exists within hiring, firing, but it has to be someone who understands education.
Thank you, Judge. So we want to go, I want to go back, and I want you guys to consider the education of Black and brown boys and girls at this point. And I know this is talked about in the school to prison pipeline by Michelle Alexander. I know this is what we know as educators, especially urban educators, to be true. What can we do as a community to change that narrative? What can we do? Who do you need? How do we support you? Because I know we are stronger together, and I know the oneness cannot be on schools alone, but what can we do to change that narrative? Peter, I want to start with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're spot on when you talk about the system and how it's developed. Not much has changed systematically in many decades, and it is set up for a student to be successful if they have a strong family structure at home, good support systems outside of school. We all know that kids are in school for maybe 5 or 6 hours a day, and the rest of the time is spent at home. And it really, what it goes back down to is, we keep talking about this in the midst of COVID, is that the individual learning experience, we need to be more focused on every individual student. What does every individual student need to be successful? And I think New York State was beginning these conversations right before the shutdown of schools of what are we looking at in terms of what is success defined as. And we are starting to move away from success being defined as a test and a simple regurgitation of knowledge, and more about, are you prepared to do the types of things that you need to do in life to be successful? I think what we can do more on a local level relative to helping students of color be successful in school and increase, if you will, the statistical graduation rate, is we have to convince our staff to be courageous and not focus on the statistics of what the test might say, and reach out to kids work on each individual kid, understanding that you might have to slow down the pace at which you do your curriculum, and maybe a data set for the time being might suffer. But in the long run, if you can build that relationship, give students the benefit of the doubt, learn about what it is that what they're experiencing outside of school that might be causing them to perform differently in school. Why is it that they are more tired at school? I would venture a guess that most students are going home, and this is not just students of color, but specifically students in urban situations. They're going home, and if they're a secondary student, they're caring for their siblings, their younger siblings. If they're a secondary student that's of age to get a job, they're probably going to work and trying to care for their younger siblings. And I think right now what we do as a school system is we aren't open enough to meeting kids where they are at and meeting families where they are at to help their kids both stay engaged in school and then find the success that they need. We need to and layer that all in with what Jawad just said about curriculum. If a student is not interested in what they're learning in school, it doesn't, I don't care what their background is. If they're not interested in what they're coming to school to learn, they're going to be more apt to not want to be there. So we need to continue to, again, look internally. What can we do to improve our curriculum to make it more representative of the students that we serve, but at the same time, reach out to students and learn more about what it is that they're experiencing, and how can we take their experiences and make it work for them versus the other way around, where the system is, as you saw in that video, my job is to teach you. So your job is to get here. And if you're not here, I can't do anything. Too bad, too sad. And if you are here, you better do what I tell you to do, or too bad, too sad. And that narrative, unfortunately, still exists with some teachers. And I do think it's reversing. I do think we're changing the trend. But again, it's a long, hard fight, and we keep at it.
Yes, Mr. Faulci, I'd like your response.
Sure. Again, I think a lot of it comes back to relationships, knowing who your students are. And I mean, I can remember back being a classroom teacher, students really need to know that you care about them, that you have a passion for the education you're providing them, and that you're genuinely interested in their success and their well-being. And I think a lot of the things that we talked about here will lead to that. I also think, as Dr. Blake said, student engagement is, to me, it's a major key in getting our students raising test scores, but also getting our students to where we want them to be. If they're not engaged, if they can't find something interesting in the class that they're in, and kids are very, very smart. They have an intuitive understanding of whether the person standing in front of them is genuinely interested in their success or not. And a lot of kids adapt that way when they're in class. So I think that's huge, the student engagement piece. And we have to find ways to engage students. And also it comes down to school climate. I mean, you take the classroom climate and build it on a bigger scale. We really have to look at school climate and what we're doing in the school to make it a welcoming environment and for kids to want to be there and to be successful.
Thank you. Mr. Alessia?
Yes, again, the first thing that we need to do is to get to know the students. It's very important that we know who the students are, to welcome them to the classroom, to welcome their cultural background, to welcome their experiences, and to have them coming into the classroom and share their experiences, and to provide the opportunity for them to grow within the classroom. Relationships are very important. And like Mr. Faulci said a few minutes ago, the kids know whether you're faking it or not. They know that from day one, and when they have a relationship with the teachers, they talk to the teacher, they get to know the teacher, you will see that they will grow. Again, it's also very important that we engage the family. We cannot do the job alone. We need to make sure that we welcome the family, that they're part of the educational system, so we can support not only the kids, the families, and that we welcome all of them. We can say, you know, everyone is welcome in this building, everybody's welcome in the classroom, but sometimes we make it difficult. Finding the way to communicate with them, finding the way to make sure that they can come in during different times of the day and to be available to talk to our students and our parents.
Thank you. Dr. Hayali?
I totally agree with all of my wonderful colleagues. And I want to just add on top of it, I think as a school, if we just think as a school, yeah, we can do that much. But I think also the partnerships are so crucial, yes? And I know all of my colleagues are having great partnerships just to build that village, because it takes the whole village to raise our wonderful children. So therefore, I strongly believe, because one of the questions was, what can the community do? And it's the partnerships that will open those resources, and the mentorship piece on top of it. When I have seen firsthand how 100 Black men has influenced our children, not just our school district children, to all the children, you know, serving all of them. At the end of the day, there's no last name. It's all about the child, and who will come back to our community as a great leader and a productive citizen. So this mentorship program through Junior Frontiers, NAACP, 100 Black Men, or any other, or MACNY even, Manufacturing Associations, yes, they are providing those job shadowing internships, because while we're building this, we want to also open those resources. And as a school, we know we are, even though New York seems like paying quite a bit, but there's a disparity in the funding, big time. And when I look in Utica, I mean, or in Syracuse, or anywhere in Rome, yes, you have the most, the students who needs the most, and whereas we get the less. Yes, it's an interesting formula. We all talk about it, and that's something I always try to focus on to fight against this disparity of the funding. On the side, like I said, the partnerships are so crucial, because if we can build this partnership, your impact, Judge Blackman's impact, or anyone's impact are so much more, and adds on the top of what the school, our dedicated teachers will do, and create this environment. I just wanted to add this piece on what our wonderful colleagues are for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hayali. We have Enterprise Charter on the school. Dr. PA, I know you wanted to respond to that question.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much. And I apologize for going in and out. We're just so busy today. But I really just wanted to comment on some of the feedback that I've been receiving. And it's really good feedback. And it definitely hits home. But one of the things that you spoke about when you talked about our students of color and the school to prison pipeline, and, you know, all of those things that we know is happening. One of the things I think that we need to do is to actually be a little bit more proactive. And a lot of what I'm seeing in the classroom, even with my own children, is their ways of thinking. And I know that society contradicts, you know, what we tell them. You can be whatever it is that you want to be. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. Yet we look at everything that's going on in society right now. So one of the things that we try to do is we try to weave in all of those aspects into our everyday practices. So we try to get our teachers to understand that academics and behavior go hand in hand. You really cannot have one without the other. So when we have issues with behaviors and things like that, we don't have like a blanketed approach. We have to understand, you know, what's going on with that student, you know, and all those little things that feeds into what their behavior is showing us. So I think it's really important to just set them up for success and being very mindful about your everyday processes, especially the way that we deal with discipline. Like that's really important. If you take a look at suspension rates across the board, it's a lot higher for students of color. And I think part of it is because people just don't have the answers. They don't know what they don't know. So when you have to deal with those situations, and your approaches have to be very meaningful and very mindful, and you have to do what works for your organization and your students. And that means that you have to take the time out to understand your students and understand your community and what those needs are. And sometimes it's not just dealing with the student, but also with those families, and like what everybody talked about, building those partnerships, because it truly takes a village to raise a child. You can't do it alone. And we really won't start seeing any progress in that area until we come together and understand that and start building those bridges. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we have to dig a little bit more deeper in the things that we see in the classrooms, and really take a look at our processes and the things that we have in place, especially in regarding behavior and social emotional health.
Thank you. So piggybacking on what she said, set them up for success. We know that we have teachers in place, we have administrators in place, we have counselors in place. How do we use what we have in place? I'll say counselors. How do we make sure our students are able to connect to those groups of people? I'll speak from my own experiences. I graduated from high school in Southern California. I had a guidance counselor who told me I should be a teacher. I said, never in a million years. He's like, no, you really should be a teacher. And it was never on my radar. I ended up, full disclosure, I ended up getting pregnant, and so I wasn't going to be able to pursue my basketball career. And I had a counselor who was not my counselor, who chased me down, hunted me down at school to let me know that there was an academic scholarship available for me, and so I did not have to forego my desire to go to school. What do we do to make sure, to ensure that the counselors and everybody else is on the same page when it comes to educating our students of color? Peter, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think the key thing, again, back to relationships, when it comes to social emotional learning counseling, most schools, I believe, now have a good complement of counselors. I know in Rome, we have counselors at every grade level, multiple counselors in our schools, and some districts across the state are still, I think, trying to increase their counseling numbers. But right now, what has been missing with that is we can keep on hiring folks to do the jobs, and we can keep on making them available, but we have yet to change the parameters on the requirement for students to really meet with counselors. There is some required counseling curriculum that I think is pretty superficial. It's just a scratch of the surface, but we got to build time into kids' schedules to have those conversations with their counselors. There should be student advising periods required. I think what technology has shown us in the past few months is that a student's ability to learn the X's and O's is far greater than we all want to imagine it would be, if we're going to speak truthfully. The need for a teacher in the classroom, the days of simply saying, here's the information you need to know and make sure you can regurgitate this, that's not what teaching is anymore. And educators that want to live in that world are really, at this point, they're dinosaurs. Our kids need people in front of them that can build a relationship with them. We need to provide time for those relationships to be built, and we need to provide our teachers time to build those relationships. Sometimes I think teachers are apprehensive to build a relationship because they feel the pressure of getting through the curriculum, right? There is that pressure of making sure the kids are instructed on the things that the state or the district says that they have to. We have to provide that safe feeling for our staff to stop what they're doing and get to know their kids, get to know what makes the kids go around. What is it that interests them? What is it that maybe they can learn through math to help them in whatever career walk of life they want to go in. But most importantly, if we get back to the question about counseling specifically, our school schedules and timeframes the kids are in school are not set up at this point to provide an opportunity for those kids to regularly access those individuals. And what ends up happening is school counselors, for the most part, are addressing emergencies, right? Crises that come up, and they're constantly putting out those fires, which is good for the kid. But at the same time, what is that doing for our counseling staff and our mental health staff? I repeatedly am finding counselors that are burning out at the high school level and want to move down to a middle school and elementary level simply because they can't handle the constant barrage of issues that a teenager might arise in a given situation. So I do think that providing flexibility in school schedules, working with our bargaining units to free up what times a counselor might have, it might mean people need to have more hours in the day. I don't know, but if we can work on getting that built, that will be beneficial for both our counselors and our kids, I think.
Thank you. Mr. Faulci?
Sure, I would have to agree that a lot of our counselors' time is spent on crisis management or logistics of planning for schedules and things of that nature. But when it comes right down to the counseling, I think our counselors do a pretty good job. But I think it's important that counselors, teachers understand the power of their words. And just like we talked about relationships and being genuine, understanding that a student needs to be believed in. So whenever you're providing counseling, you want that counselor needs to make an impression upon that kid that they believe in that kid and that they have the potential to do anything that they want in the future, and then help them, guide them along that path. But again, that it's difficult with all the restraints and constraints that they're under with a lot of the logistical things that they're doing during the school day.
Thank you. Mr. Alessia?
I was just thinking of a conversation that I had with a counselor, And I said, school counselor, and he said, no, I'm not a school counselor. I work in a school, but I'm not a school counselor. I'm a guidance counselor. It's my job to work with the kid, to provide the guidance that they're going to need to be successful in the future. So we gotta make sure that our counselors have the time during the day to be available to meet with our students on a regular basis, not only when there's a crisis, but also to provide the support that they need on a regular basis. Sometimes kids go through and they don't see the counselor unless they have to make a change in their schedule or during their senior year for the college application. So we gotta make sure that they get that support, that they get to know that counselor from the moment that they enter 9th grade at the high school level, or from the moment that they enter the 6th grade in the middle school, so they can work together and get to know that the counselor get to know the kids.
Thank you.
Could I ask each of the three who have already spoken on that question, how long is each student with that one counselor from 9th grade through 12th grade? If they could just answer that question. Mr. Blake?
Yeah, we're shifting that right now in Rome, and we are cohorting kids. So in Rome, once a kid enters in 9th grade, they're with that counselor all the way through till 12th grade. Unless the only time we would change it if there was some kind of major issue that arose between the student, the counselor, and the family. But otherwise, they're sticking right with them.
Mr. Faulci?
Sure. We have counselors who specialize with 9th and 10th grade, and then the kids go to an 11, 12 counselor that they have for their last 2 years of high school, because the needs are somewhat different when you're a freshman and a sophomore, and then college planning in 11 and 12, or post-secondary planning, depending on what the kid's choosing to do.
So it's 2 and 2?
Yes.
And Mr. Alessia?
4 years. They work with the kids from 9th grade until the year when they graduate, senior year.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll let the other two panelists answer the full question in that question as well.
Mr. Hayeli, Dr. Hayeli, I apologize.
So I do have my counseling background as well, and I know the importance to be the bridge between the teachers and the students and even the families. I want to also include the social worker here as well. So one thing in our case, I'm so grateful to our board who allowed us to utilize actually 2 positions, one counseling and the second one is purely college guidance. And because in college guidance, like Mr. Faulci was sharing, it does take a lot of time, and you need to really focus on each and every child to make sure, you know, all the FAFSA is in there, the planning is there, the career test and all other. But then you wanted to create a position where you dive into the more social emotional pieces and you really create that trust. And when we are looking in, is the fact that when we see those kids are coming to the counselors, yes, and sometimes you're telling the counselor, hey, they need to go back. Actually, that's a good sign. You're building this good relationship, you know. Obviously, there are frequent flyers, you know, the counselors will work with you together. But it is the bridge I have seen quite often that builds and helps the teachers to realize, oh, I didn't know that, you know, creates this moment, because not every teacher can build that trustful relationship, obviously. And the counselors are really a great support on that side that will that can help the teachers to deliver their, you know, instruction, you know, with passion, obviously. Another piece we found in both of the cities that helped the children quite a bit is going out of the way. Let's say when the counselors are supporting the teachers to do those home visits or the visits to in the community outreach, and even delivering the food when they didn't have the transportation, teachers felt that, oh, if the counselor can do it, why not me? Yes. So you do have to have the right counselors as well, who really have the passion, the love, and the mindset to do this work, to build that bridge. And if you want to really reduce the suspension rate, you know, with the restorative justice, the circles, and all others, the counselors does take a lead part on this, because it's easy to just write up an in-school suspension, out-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. But it's another part important that we will really make sure that the counselor can reach and understand the reasons behind this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I've gotten a lot of questions about relationships, and we use the term teachers, people on campus need to build relationships with the students. I'm going to say sometimes people don't know where to begin or what that is supposed to look like. When I work with school districts, I tell them, when it comes to building relationships, see yourself as the person who needs to be at any given time, the counselor, the advocate, the role model, the disciplinarian, the surrogate parent. Whatever that looks like, that student may need. So I want to put that out there when it comes to building relationships. I have another question and I'm going to pose it later, but the question that I want to ask about the relationships is, I've talked to several people, I've surveyed, and something I believe is you have to love them, to teach them, to work with them, to support them, to work them through the process. Overwhelmingly, I get feedback that says, no, I don't have to love them. Now, I always explain, when I say love, I mean the human experience. You have to love them to teach them. What are your thoughts on the people who actually feel like that's not necessary? I can do this without loving them.
They're in the wrong field.
Yeah,
they are in the wrong field, number one. That's that, okay? You have to love them. You have to show them that you care. You have to be able to establish that relationship. I'm sorry that I jump in, but unless you have that relationship with the kids, like I said before, they know when you're faking it. You need to be tough with them, but you need to show them that you care. You need to have that relationship with them and tell them you can do this. You can do this, or no, you should not be doing that. Expectations is one thing. Relationship is another thing. And to say that they don't have to love them, they need to get out of teaching.
Thank you. I'm not going to ask anyone else. I think that sums it up.
Sorry.
So I got this. This question actually came from the chat. We know that there is a hotbed issue right now with SROs and classes in school buildings. From my own experience, a million years ago, we had armed SROs on our building, but this was in California. What are your positions on SROs in schools? Mr. Blake, go ahead.
And I'm sorry, Dr. Reed, could you explain to the participating audience what's an SRO?
Oh, I'm sorry, student resource officers. There I go with those acronyms. I apologize. Student resource officers. Go ahead, Mr. Blake.
Thank you. Yeah, this is probably one of the biggest conversations that most school districts and communities are needed to have right now. And the challenging piece, or somewhat of the ironies, if you just turn the clock back about 2 years, I don't know that there wasn't a community out there screaming for more SROs in our schools due to safety concerns relative to school violence and school shootings. And I think, not getting too deep into the weeds on this and with all of that stuff, while school resource officers could be good to help in the moment that there was an issue in a school, they can't prevent it from happening. Right. So the argument of more officers in the building to protect the school against a school shooting or school violence is just not accurate. They can't prevent it, but they can minimize it if it were to break out. That being said, I really think that, like any profession, we've been talking about, as Jaime just mentioned, those teachers that probably shouldn't be teaching. There are folks that are in law enforcement that shouldn't be in law enforcement, doctors that shouldn't be doctors, all walks of life, right? There's superintendents that maybe shouldn't be superintendents. It happens. But if you're going to have an SRO in your building, it's a responsibility of the school district to make very sure that that SRO understands the function and the mission of a school district. And if they do, if they're able to build relationships with kids, if they're able to remove themselves from what a traditional officer is viewed as by a community, then I think that can be successful. Another piece of that, though, is the way in which a police force is viewed with your community, right? So if your police force in general in the community does not have a good relationship with the community directly, having those SROs in your building is going to have an adverse effect on what you really want them to be there for. They are there for intentionally to build relationships with kids, help them before they might go down the wrong path into criminal activity or violence. That isn't always the case. And I know here in Rome, we work very closely with our chief of police anytime that they are going to have a new SRO involved in a school. We go through a pretty extensive process to make sure that we're comfortable with the officer that they're sending, to make sure that the officer understands what it is that has to be done. And a big piece of this, and I have not been successful with this in Rome yet, and I won't give up the fight. It goes back to our very first question about students coming into buildings and seeing individuals that look like them. I'm a firm believer that an SRO in a building can be very helpful, but I am not a believer that the SRO should be in full police regalia. I think there's no reason for that to be the case. I think it'd be great to have an SRO that's just in casual street clothes that looks like any other staff member walking around the school. I think that sends a much more positive message about why the SRO would be there. It makes the SRO more approachable for students that may have a bad experience with the law somewhere in their past. And just in general, I think it helps that relationship building piece. So, and I know some school districts have that relationship with their police force and community where they can have that SRO be in street clothes. But a lot of places, the police forces and the local governments are resistant to doing that for the sake that their rules are that an officer must be in uniform anytime that they're on the clock.
Thank you.
Mr. Blake, I ask you one quick question. That is, are you aware of the SROs having any specific, special, or different training than regular police officers for being around children 6 hours a day?
Yes, several times a year there are state mandated trainings for SROs, and the SROs throughout the state or within a specific region need to attend those trainings together, and they're done in mass. I know our SROs go to trainings that happen in Oswego frequently, at least 4 times a year. I can't tell you how much more training might be involved over the summer. Once the SRO gets to the summertime, we aren't really involved in their employment for those 2 months. That's all done through the city of Rome. But there is training and the trainings are usually 2 full days at a time, at least the ones that our SROs go to. And they also participate in the trainings that we offer as a school district that would be relevant to them.
Yes.
Thank you. So we're getting close to the end of our session. I'm going to pose the same question to Mr. Faulci. And sir, can you respond to the SROs on the school building question, please?
Sure. I would just like to add to what Dr. Blake said. They have to have clear expectations of what their role is in the school. And primarily they are there to build a relationship with students. But there also is a clear expectation that they are not involved in any enforcement of the school district code of conduct. And that's an important delineation to make.
Thank you.
That's the sole role of the building administrator.
Thank you. Mr. Alessia?
Yes, we do have SROs, and the Board of Education is going to have a conversation tomorrow evening about the future of the SROs in the Syracuse City School District. One thing that we do in Syracuse, they have to participate in training from the Division of Juvenile Justice before they can be an SRO in the district. Like Dr. Blake said, that is a 2-day training. It's about understanding the brain of the young child, how to support the child, and dealing with those issues in school. But more important is training our administrators so they'll know that the role of the SRO is not to deal with the behavior in the building. That's their job. Is there to support the kids, to have a relationship with the kids. The job of the behavior, dealing with behavior, is the job of the principal, not the SRO.
Thank you. I missed this part. Mr. Faulci, do your SROs go through training as well?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Jaime, do you have SROs on your campuses?
Not the similar way, but
right.
we do partner with the security office company that helps us. Again, I do agree with Dr. Blake. Even with these individuals who are at the front door, making sure all the parents who are coming in or any outsiders who are coming in are checked through, signed in and signed out and everything else. they should not be seen with their typical police uniform or something like that, but more welcoming. And that's something that we're working on it as well. Another part is also, I agree with Superintendent Jaime as well, to build the relationship. Discipline is not their job, but building the relationship, sometimes they do bring great information when they build that relationships. Hey, you know what? This is what I found out. Because you can't know everything at the same time, but having those individuals in the building supporting you is a really great resource as well. And going through the training, it's the first and foremost thing, especially working in an urban environment. And honestly, looking even of those individuals who represents the community as well, so that they can feel also comfortable to come to them. Yes.
Thank you. I want to say this about student resource officers. So I go into many campuses across the state. And when I first started teaching, one of the aspects that was most uncomfortable for me, and this is as an adult person, educated, doctorate, all of it. Whenever I walked into a school building and I saw the SRO in his full uniform, no matter what, because of the relationship that I had growing up with law enforcement, I was always uneasy. Till this day, when I walk into a school building, if I see an officer in complete regalia, I'm still uneasy. And so as someone who's gone through the training, as someone who's gone through everything you can think of when it comes to social and emotional health, as an adult, I'm still uncomfortable. And so I believe Mr. Blake touched on that, and I believe Dr. Blake and Mr. Alessia touched on it. It is really important to understand the relationships between the officers and the community, which is something we need to work on. I know we have a couple of minutes remaining. I know there's a video that we want to show. I would like you guys to have some closing remarks, but you only got like 30 seconds, superintendents, okay? So, okay, like maybe 35. All right, go ahead, Mr. Alessia.
Again, I just want to say thank you for giving me and giving us the opportunity to spend this time with you to talk about our Black students that we have in our district. Our nation is in turmoil right now, and it is our responsibility. It is my duty as the superintendent of the Syracuse City School District to do everything that I can to support all the students in the district. And when we say sometimes all the students, is because we don't want to talk about the Black, we don't want to talk about the Latino. But as a superintendent, I have to look at each subgroup individually, find out the needs that they have, and it's my job and the job of the Board of Education to support those students and to do everything that we can to make sure that they're successful, because their success will translate to our success. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. Mr. Blake?
Right on that with Jaime. Just thank you for allowing me to be a participant today. It's been a pleasure to hear what other districts are doing. That's part of this process, is collaboration. I really need to thank Jawad and you, Chanel, for your partnership and the local Rome NAACP. You know, Rome is not a community that has not had these issues, and I don't think that I would be a part of this panel today if it weren't for the work that you both have done with us and our local NAACP to recognize the fact that we can grow and that we can be better, and that as a community and a school community, this is our task, this is our charge to make sure that our students are getting the educational experience that they deserve, that they're entitled to. And really what it boils down to is we'll help them be successful adults and change the narratives that we've seen on TV for the past several months now. It starts with us in schools, as Jaime mentioned, and we can do this, but we're definitely going to need to do it together. And I really look forward to the continued partnership and the changes that we can make here in Rome. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Jaime?
As Superintendent Jaime and Superintendent Blake shared, it is this partnership, and I'm also looking forward to continue this wonderful collaboration and partnership for all of our children to make sure their success, as Superintendent Jaime indicated, their success is our success, and that's the pleasure, and that's the meaning that will create this wonderful environment in our community. And thank you for bringing us together again in this virtual environment, connecting us with our community, our children, and sharing because it is, if we want to change this narrative, it starts with us all together. And we can't expect from somewhere else. And I totally agree also with Superintendent Jaime. If they don't love, they need to leave. And we need to love it so much that we are not afraid to tell them the truth also. If it's something wrong, we love them that much that we're going to tell them that that's not right. And thank you again for involving me. It's an honor to be with my colleagues and with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Faulci.
All right, no, thank you again for this opportunity. I guess the last thing I would say that as a district, our diversity is our strength. And as educators who are molding children, we do have to love our children. I wanted to get back to that question and have an opportunity to respond, but we also have to love what we're doing as educators. And again, the kids know if we do, and the kids know if we don't. We need to teach empathy, compassion, fairness, and embed these principles into the fabric of our school and model them on a consistent basis. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. Thank you.
Thank you. What I want to say before we start the video is if there are school districts that are listening, or parents or teachers that are listening, and they are interested in finding out more about work that is being done in diversity and inclusion and bias training, they can reach out to the Junior Frontiers or the Frontiers International of the Mohawk Valley, and you will be directed on the right path. We will do, as a group, we will do whatever we can to assist you, because we know that we are stronger together, and this is about our students, our community, our region, our state, our country. I know there is a video that is about to be shown. I would love for all of you to stay and listen to the video. Thank you very much.
To my kindergarten students.
To my elementary students.
To our middle school students.
To my high school students.
To my students.
To my students. It's okay to be sad.
It is okay to feel scared. It's okay to be angry.
There is no right way for you to process all of the events that are happening in our world today.
Everyone will not understand how you're feeling.
But we see you, we hear you, and we feel you.
Your feelings and thoughts are valid.
We want you to know that we will do everything we can to protect you and create an environment where you feel safe and loved.
We encourage all students, regardless of color, to ask questions, be informed, and start conversations with those around you.
In turn, we will do our part to help educate those in school and in the community.
From the youngest kindergartners that walk through our doors
to the high school seniors ready to graduate.
We want you to know that you have a voice that is able to be heard.
No matter how big or small, your voice matters.
You are the future, and your words are powerful.
We encourage you to speak so others can hear you.
Your lives matter inside and outside of our schools.
We want to foster a sense of love, acceptance, and unity in the community from which we serve.
To our Black students, your skin not only represents the strength of those before you, but it is a representation of worldwide influence. It is a reminder of the strong Black leaders that fought for you to be here and the Black achievers who made change. Now it's your turn to lead.
You come from a strong lineage. Be confident. Be resilient. You have to value your education and use it to change the world.
Although we shouldn't have to deal with injustice, we are strong and we are built for this.
Love and unity can overcome it all.
To our fellow educators, we hope to stand together in solidarity and fight for the rights of our students.
The Delaware State Education Association acknowledges that educators' silence speaks volumes during times of racial tension or violence. Our students are listening.
As teachers, it is our obligation to commit ourselves to lifelong learning.
We must learn how to support diversity in our classrooms and be agents of social change.
Our schools must work to become trauma-informed as more of our students are being exposed to first or secondary traumatic stress.
It is a fact that 1 out of every 4 children attending school has been exposed to a traumatic event that can affect their learning and or their behavior.
We must be there to support and uplift our students through times like this.
As stated by the National Education Association, our goal should be to spark an ongoing movement of critical reflection and honest conversation in school communities for people of all ages to engage with issues of racial justice.
It must begin with us.
Together, we have the power to bring light into a dark world.
This is why we are educators.
This is what we do.
It is now our time to take a stand.
It is not enough for us to simply be not racist. We must be anti-racist.
To ignore these racial tensions is the same as ignoring the struggles of many of our students.
We are committed to using the power of education to battle systematic racism and oppression.
We will always affirm that Black Lives Matter.
We truly believe that each life matters, but right now, the African American community is being most affected by racial inequities.
If one of your students scrapes their knee, you wouldn't give all your students a Band-Aid. Instead, you would focus on the one who is hurting.
We will strive to use sympathy, kindness, and respect to bring everyone together despite the racism existing in them.
As the NEA states, we choose not to accept these conditions as they exist, but to accept the responsibility for changing them.
To our students, we will fight for you.
We will strive to set the best example for you.
We will be successful in making this world better for you.
George Floyd.
Ahmaud Arbery.
Oscar Grant.
Breonna Taylor.
Alton Sterling.
Trayvon Martin.
Tatiana Jefferson.
Sandra Bland.
Ayana Jones.
Eric Gardner.
Sean Bell.
Philando Castile.
Walter Scott.
Samuel DuBose.
Tamir Rice.
Terrence Crutcher. Ronnie King.
Michael Brown.
Emmett Till.
And countless others.
Their lives matter.
Your life matters.
Lives matter.
Black 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 lives matter.
Thank you, everyone. Judge, do you have parting words? You're muted, Judge. Unmute.
We'd like to thank our audience for joining us today. We hope that you've been able to find some particles of knowledge, some instances of hope. We believe that our superintendents and representatives have all expressed their desire to serve, have their districts continue to serve our children. We know that all of our districts, as everything else that's going on in our society, is in need of help. Please become a part of the solution. We know there are issues. Let's work together to make our children's educational experience the type that Superintendent Jaime said it should be, and that is this: we should all be here for our children. This is all about our education, our future. And every time that we succeed with one individual child, the school district succeeds as well. So thank you. Please follow through with the remainder of the town hall meetings put on by the Mohawk Valley Frontiers. We enjoy bringing these issues and topics to you. We look forward to your continued participation. To our panelists, much, much thanks, much, much respect. And we hope to continue to be a partner with you as we continue to try to make our educational system better for all of its participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for taking out time to be with us. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.